All right, hi mixed media students. This is Miss Florzak coming back with lesson 2 on our appropriation versus plagiarism in artwork. You should have seen this document last week and hopefully you completed it and pressed turn in on Google Classroom. I will be able to grade you and help you improve your grade if you did that. If not, please reach out to me and let me know if you have questions. I'm happy to help you get caught up on this. So the first two artworks I put in here, you guys just had to read about whether or not they were plagiarism or appropriation. The first one was plagiarism because this artist right here tried to pass off this work as their own, and it's almost a direct copy of the original. So plagiarizing is essentially copying and then trying to say that it's your own without giving credit to the original artist. We want to avoid that at all costs when we are creating artwork. Artists are always inspired by each other though, so it's almost impossible to not take inspiration from other artists, but sometimes artists will do it a little bit more obviously. So for example, let me see if I can turn my brightness up for you guys. This is a painting by Kehinde Wiley, and it's pretty recent. I think I gave you the year over here, 2005, and he very clearly appropriated the imagery from this painting right here. It's a Napoleon Crossing the Alps by Jacques-Louis David from 1801, right? We can see the very obvious similarities, but he made some very specific choices to bring new meaning to the artwork, specifically using a person of color. That was something Kehinde Wiley, being a person of color himself, he does this often. He takes old paintings and he recreates them using people who were often not represented in artwork back in that time. Well, they were, but the artwork was not often recognized. It did not get very much recognition. So that is something that he wanted to do. He wanted to make sure that people knew he was referencing this artwork. He was not trying to pass the design off as his own. He was trying to bring that to the forefront and make a point and bring new meaning to the work. So that would be considered appropriation, not plagiarism. So right here, I had asked you guys to define or tell me what you know the difference is between appropriation and plagiarism. And it should be something along those lines. Plagiarism is trying to copy work and say that it's your own. Appropriation is taking ideas from other artworks or taking maybe composition, so the composition is the same, but giving it a whole new meaning. It's fresh, it's new, it does not mean the same thing anymore. Your assignment last week was to tell me if these examples were plagiarism or appropriation. And I'm not gonna go over that in the video because I know some of you are still working on this. Please try to finish this up and turn it in. And if you have questions, let me know. There were 3 artworks that you were looking at: the flames, the boats, and then the portrait of this woman. So you were just writing in this empty box right here, is the new one plagiarizing or is it appropriating? And you are telling me why you think that. So giving me evidence from the artwork. So that was our assignment last week. We are going to start planning an artwork. So I have a website I'm going to provide to you guys. It will be uploaded in Google Classroom. Let me find that. Here it is. And it has a ton of very famous paintings on it. Lots and lots of paintings. So you will have lots of choice. You can go through this and choose what you want. Another art teacher friend of mine made this, so the first slide doesn't really apply to what we're doing. If you would like to try to recreate this artwork in a photo, you might be able to do that, but I want you to really just skip past that first slide. And these are just lists and lists of famous artworks. You'll recognize a lot of them. Some of them you may not, but you know, they're just some of the most well-known paintings ever created. And the great thing about this slideshow she created for us is that it tells us the name of the artwork, it tells us the name of the artist, it tells us what year it was created. So it's got all this information, which is really fantastic. Once you find an artwork that you think you would like to appropriate something from it, try to learn a little bit more about the artwork. Look up who the artist was. Look up the date it was created. One thing that's really helpful is finding out what was going on in the world at that time. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through the process and show you an example of an artwork that's been appropriated a lot, especially recently with everything that's going on with coronavirus and everyone having to stay at home. There's this artwork that people have just been having a lot of fun appropriating from. So it's called Nighthawks by Edward Hopper. I'm sure most of you have seen this painting before. It's cut off a little bit in this image, but I'll show you the full painting. So people have been appropriating from this. We're going to take a look at a few of those examples so you can see what they've been doing. But before we do that, I would like you guys to get a little more information about this painting. Looking for my correct. Okay, so this is the Art Institute's website, and we are going to read a little bit from this article called Nighthawks as Hope, a curator muses on Edward Hopper and Crisis. So I will give you this link as well. If you want to read this again, you will be able to, but I'm just going to read a little bit and then we'll talk about it. Nighthawks has long been positioned as the iconic painting of loneliness and alienation. The composition is spare and the narrative ambiguous. Who are these people? What's their story? We can never know. We can't even access the space, but only stare in from the outside. Let's take a closer look at this before we continue to read on. So we've got this kind of empty street. There's 3 people sitting in this restaurant. There's one man behind the bar who's probably the server. It's pretty bare, not much else going on in this painting, right? All right, Hopper always denied that it was his intention to infuse the painting with urban ennui. Although he did concede that unconsciously, probably, I was painting the loneliness of a large city. What many people do not know is that Nighthawks was Hopper's response to one of the greatest crises of his generation, the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941, and the entrance of the United States into the World War II. Hopper enjoyed walking the city, but the experience must have felt remarkably different during those grim months that followed. So here's a picture of New York's Times Square from the 1940s before the blackout. Fearing attack by the Nazis, New Yorkers were subject to blackout drills and dimmed lights in public spaces. Hopper's walks were thus taken around a city literally and figuratively darkened by crisis. He later recalled how this darkness inspired Nighthawks and imagined what it would be like to come across a brightly lit diner in the middle of the night with people, the Nighthawks, within. So I'm going to stop there. If you would like to continue reading this, please do. But I was really interested in this painting because I see some similarities in what was happening when Hopper created this to kind of what we're experiencing right now. There was a crisis happening. Pearl Harbor had just been bombed. The U.S. was about to join into a war. There was a lot of uncertainty and, not as many people probably going out and leaving their house. The streets were pretty quiet. So he's kind of showing that eerie feeling in this painting. Well, we're all experiencing that right now with the social distancing and people trying to stay home as much as possible. Our streets are a lot more empty. And some people have been recreating this painting and, appropriating from it to create some artwork that relates more to what we're going through right now. So the first one is this one right here. We zoom in. So as you can see, the composition is very similar. The diner looks similar, but it's definitely not the same. It's been recreated. The colors are gone. Everything is kind of black and gray, right? There are no people inside. So let's read a little bit from this article. Our View, the Fine Art of Distance. You may have seen Nighthawks making the rounds lately on social media. The original shows a diner at night through a plate glass window. One customer has his back to the viewer, and 2 others seem to be engaging a counter worker with suspended in the ceiling light within while shadows deepen the streets outside. The new version, for an age of coronavirus, shows the interior depopulated, everything including the coffee urns gone, and now all is rendered in a pale green-gray monochrome. It is eloquent, but one of the odd things about this turn is that Hopper was not exactly a painter of conviviality before. He might be the first artist of social distancing. So I'm going to stop there. I will also link this article if you would like to read more. But what they're saying is that Hopper was actually commenting on social distancing in some way, but this artwork goes ahead and takes it one step further and removes all of the people. So complete social isolation. So it is building on the meaning, but also changing the original meaning as well. So this would be an example of appropriation. He's not trying to take credit for this artwork fully. He's definitely pointing to Hopper, but he's adding his own take on it and his own experience in it when you look at it, right? So this one's pretty serious, but some people are having fun with this as well. It's a little blurry, but somebody went and took out the people, but added Lori Lightfoot into this painting, which I'm sure a lot of you have been seeing the funny memes that have been going around with Lori Lightfoot telling people to go home and to stay inside. So that was someone's take on this, you know, recreating the Nighthawks and instead having Lori Lightfoot there with all the people gone, you know, kind of giving that stare that she gives, saying, all right, everybody needs to go home. And yeah, it's a funnier, more lighthearted appropriation of this artwork. So two different ways that you can go. I had shown you guys this one last week. So this one is an appropriation from this Rene Magritte artwork where he had replaced the apple with a cell phone. And actually, if we look even closer, the background is like this collage of T-Mobile, Sprint. It's definitely a comment on cell phones and technology and how cell phones and technology might affect our mental health or might affect our outlook on the world, right? Whereas this one, the apple being there had a completely different meaning, right? Taking the apple away and replacing it with a phone is changing what the meaning of the artwork may be. We didn't really dive too deep into this one, but I think we can all know just from taking a glance at it that the meaning has been changed. While we can see the reference to this artwork, it's definitely not a direct copy. The artist is not trying to pass this off as their own, but they are changing the meaning of it. So I hope that appropriation and plagiarism are making sense to you and that your understanding of that. If you have more questions, please let me know. The last thing I wanted to show you, and I'm sure you guys have been seeing this pop up on social media, is that lots of people have been recreating artworks now at home just for fun, taking pictures of themselves kind of looking similar to someone in a painting, which could definitely be something you could try for this project. I want to point out, though, it's important that you are not simply just copying an artwork and then turning that in saying, this is my new artwork. It has to have a new meaning. This is an okay exception for me because of the fact that with everything going on, we've been talking about toilet paper a lot. Crazy, very weird. For some reason, people keep buying all the toilet paper, but she definitely recreated this painting and it's kind of humorous, and it definitely, you look at it and you say, okay, she's making a comment on people going crazy over buying up all the toilet paper. So when I look at this artwork, totally different meaning than when I look at this painting. But she did appropriate, you know, the positioning, the composition, where her face is glancing to. The woman here is wearing a collar. She's wearing a collar. Hers is made out of toilet paper. So it's humorous, right? Something like, you know, this wouldn't work as much. It's very cute, but it's not really giving me any sort of new meaning. They just used the same styling to recreate this painting, right? The girl with the pearl earring. Very cute picture. You could make it for fun. I would love to see you guys recreate paintings and send them to me, but it doesn't work for the appropriation project. People recreating famous paintings. There's a lot of examples. You can go ahead and look through those and start thinking about what you're going to be doing. So again, you have this website here that like has tons and tons, like I'm telling you, so many artworks for you guys to go through. I would go through, find one that you think is interesting, you like the composition, you like you're drawn to it. If you're drawn to that artwork, pick it, look up the artist, do a little research, find out some information about that artwork, and start thinking, how can I pull something from this? Is it going to be the composition? Is it going to be the direct imagery? Am I going to, you know, copy the person's stance and then put them in a different setting? How am I going to make this artwork have a new meaning based on my own views and opinions of the world? It can be about coronavirus, but it does not have to be. It's really up to you. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. You know, you can reach me through email, and then mixed media students, we will have our live video chats on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10 a.m. I will upload links into Google Classroom right before that time. All right.